So Leviticus chapter 11 talks about clean and unclean animals. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, and saying to them, Speak to the people of Israel, saying, These are the living things that you may eat among all the animals that are on earth. Whatever parts the hoof and the cloven-footed and chews the cud among the animal you may eat. Nevertheless, among those that chew the cud or part the hoof, you shall not eat these. The camel, because it chews the cud but does not part the hoof, is unclean to you. And the rock badger, because it chews the cud but does not part the hoof, is unclean to you. And the hare, because it chews the cud but does not part the hoof, is unclean to you. And the pig, because it part the hoof and is cloven-footed but does not chew the cud, is unclean to you. You shall not eat any of their flesh, and you shall not touch their carcasses. They are unclean to you. A lot of people talks about this unclean and clean food, and many of the people teach about this particular section as God cares for us, so He knows what is a healthy food, what is unhealthy food. Because the parents want their children to eat clean and healthy food, so they want to give good food for them to eat so they can grow healthy. Right? So God is actually telling Israelites what to eat, what not to eat, because the certain food is very bad for the health and certain food is very good for the health. Now, I'm going to ask you, what do you think? Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Okay. What about other people? Actually, did you even know there is actually, a clean and unclean, food? Right. Mm-hmm. Right. What about you, Bryce? Do you eat pork? I don't. Right. Yeah. I personally don't eat pork, and since I don't eat pork, Koreans loves, samgyeopsal, right? I don't know if anyone eats samgyeopsal. Has anyone tried? You have? Right, right. It's a pork. It's like, you can think of it as a thick, uh, uh, bacons. You can think of it that way, thick bacons. And it's just something that Korean loves. And if I tell Koreans that I never eaten, samgyeopsal, they're like, no way. It's like, no, I never eaten samgyeopsal in my life. It's like, really? It's almost impossible as a Korean not eating samgyeopsal at least once. I never had samgyeopsal. So people ask me, is that because of the law tells you not to eat? I said, maybe. Maybe not. Well, I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys, but I try to eat healthy food. I try to avoid any junk food. I try not to eat any bad food. So I cannot always eat good and healthy food, but I try to eat healthier food than unhealthier food for my own health and for my family as well. But is that really what God wanted to tell us? To eat good food so you can live healthy life? He says some are clean animal, some are unclean animal. Certain things you can't even touch. Certain things you can't even go near. You can't even go near to the carcass or even touch that. Then you become unclean. Then think about this for a moment. Why God all of a sudden gave this law to the Israelites? Let's kind of step back for a little. When God created all this, did God create animals clean and unclean? No. When God created animals in the Garden of Eden, He never called certain animals clean and certain animals unclean. When did He start calling it unclean and clean animal? Can you answer that? When the sacrifice started. Okay? Let's step back. Let's go back to the Genesis for a moment. Remember the times when God ordered the Noah to make ark, right? And then what did he do? Let's go to Genesis chapter 10. No, not 10 actually. It is 7. Yeah. Actually, 7. Genesis chapter 7, I'm going to read. Then the Lord said to Noah, Go into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. Take with you 7 pairs of all clean animals, the male and his mate, and a pair of animals that are not clean, the male and his mate, and 7 pairs of the birds of the heavens also, male and female, to keep their offspring alive on the face of all the earth. All right. When did God call it clean and unclean? This is when the animal was going into the Noah's ark. God distinguished clean animal, unclean animal. But did God mention you should eat the clean animals or unclean animals? So how many pairs of a clean animal got into the ark? 7. And then how many pairs of unclean? Remember. Let's take a look at the verse 2. Take with you 7 pairs of all clean animals, the male and his mate, and a pair of the animals that are not clean, the male and his mate. Pair. 1 pair. Male and the mate. Why? There was a distinction. Why God is telling the clean animals to get in with 7 pair, whereas unclean animals with 1 pair? Yeah, he was planning ahead, but what is he preparing here? So, when Noah came out of the ark, do you think he gave the unclean animals as a sacrifice or a clean animal as a sacrifice? When Noah came out of the ark, do you think Noah sacrificed with unclean animal or a clean animal? Why? We would never give unclean animals to the Lord. Right? It has to be pure and clean. And on top of that, there's only 1 pair. So if you actually give that unclean animal as a sacrifice animal, what happens to that species? Wiped out. So you can't give the unclean animals as sacrifice animal. You have to give clean animal. That's why God told them to bring the 7 pairs of clean animals, because those are the things that you're going to use to sacrifice, and also that's what they're going to eat. This is the first time ever that they start eating meat. Before, God only allowed them to eat the plants and vegetation, not animal. After they came out of the ark, there's no vegetable, there's no plants, right? So there's nothing to eat. So they had no choice but but to eat animals. That's when they start eating animals. So, God distinguished clean animal and unclean animal. But what about when God created animals in the Garden of Eden? Did God create clean animal and unclean animal and he separated, or do you think all the animal was all good? Well, when God created, he did not distinguish the clean animal versus unclean animal. It was all equal. Right? And even after Noah came out of the ark, right? And then time has passed that Abraham was actually living in the Canaan. God did not tell Abraham to eat clean animal. There's no distinction at the time. Right? There was no law was given to them. So therefore, they can eat whatever they want to eat. Because there's no law that prevent them not to eat. So they can eat anything they want. Yes? So, at the time of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, when they were living, they were able to eat whatever they feel like to eat. What about the pagans? Are they different or are they the same? Well, everybody else eat whatever they want, right? Abraham was the same. He could eat anything he wants if he wanted to. Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, same thing. What about people who are living in Egypt after they move? Can they eat anything they want? Absolutely. God never forbid them to eat. If they wanted, they could eat those. There's no law to prevent them not to eat. So up until this time, the law was given to Moses. They were able to eat without any guilt. They could eat anything they want. And all of a sudden, God is actually ordering them not to eat this unclean animals. Only eat clean animals. Don't even go near to this unclean animals. Eat only clean animals. But there's a restriction. Not every animal is clean. Not based on the appearance. Not based on category. But God gave certain types of animals God defines as a clean. What is the definition of a clean animal? It has to chew cud. It has to chew cud. And two, it has to have a split hoof. Right? Those are the two requirements. First, the animal must cud the chew. Not cud the chew. Chew the cud. And then it must have a split hoof. Now question, why? Why God is separating between clean and unclean animal? In order for us to understand, we have to find a clue why God is doing what he's doing. The clue is in the Bible. So let's take a look at this. Let's come back to Leviticus chapter 11 again. we're going to jump to the end of the chapter 11 this time. We're going to read from verse 44. For I am the Lord your God. Consecrate yourself therefore, and be holy, for I am holy. You shall not defile yourself with any swarming things that crawls on the ground. For I am the Lord who brought you up out of the land of Egypt to be your God. You shall therefore be holy, for I am holy. You heard about this, right? This is something that you're familiar with, right? This particular statement that God is making. Be holy, for I am holy. We know this, but what most people don't know is, when did God say this word? God said this while he was actually giving orders and giving a law to Moses about clean and unclean food. Then think about this for a moment. What does it have to do with this? Clean and unclean animal versus holy and unholy. What's the relationship here? I'm going to ask you this question to everyone. God said, be holy, for I am holy. Can we be holy? Then why is he ordering us to be holy if we cannot be holy? The holy means kodesh. So, he said, be holy, for I am holy. So that means you have to be holy like me. But can we ever be holy like God? Never. We can never be holy like God. There's no way that we can be holy like God. But he's telling us, be holy. But why is he telling us be holy if he can't? He already knows that we can never be holy. Then why is he telling us be holy? This kodesh means holy, but at the same time it has a meaning of be separated. So let's translate this word a slightly different way. Be holy, for I am holy. Be separated, for I am separated. Separated from what? From this world. I am different. I'm not the same as this, everything around here. I'm different. I'm separated from this world. As I have been separated, I want you to be separated from this world. Don't be part of this world. Be separated. Be different as I am different. I don't want you to be like this world. Let me ask you this. Nowadays, when I see people, I could never tell whether this person is Christian or not. I could never tell whether this is a believer of God or not. I only know when they come to church that I know they're Christians and I know they believe of God, but when I see them outside of the church, there's no way I can tell whether this is a Christian or not. There are some people are like that, but very, very, or extremely rare that I can easily tell, oh, he's a Christian outside of the church. What does that mean? we are like? Same as this world. Even demons cannot tell who's Christians these days. We're so blended into this world, we cannot differentiate who's the worldly people versus who's a Christian. There's no distinction anymore. It's all blend. So blurry. We cannot tell. But God is saying, you are my chosen people. You're not like any others. You're my chosen one. Be different. But look at ourselves. When I'm outside the church, can other people tell just by looking at me, oh, you're a Christian? Or if I don't tell anything, they will never know that I'm a Christian. Remember, when Abraham was living in the land of Canaan, and there are people who came to him and said something. What did they say to Abraham? Not sure? Let's turn to Genesis chapter 21. We're going to read from verse 22. At that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, said to Abraham, God is with you in all that you do. Now therefore swear to me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me or with my descendants or with my posterity. But as I have dealt kindly with you, so you will deal with me and with the land where you have sojourned. And Abraham said, I will swear. And who is this? Who is this Abimelech and Phicol? Where is he from? They are Philistines. They're Philistines. And Abraham did not running around telling people, I'm a believer of God. But just by looking at Abraham, they saw God is with him. He didn't brag about God is with him. But even Philistines were able to tell that God is always with him. He saw, his commander saw that God is with him. And this happened to Isaac as well. Let's turn to chapter 26. Genesis chapter 26, verse 26. When Abimelech went to him from Gerar with Ahuzah, his advisor, and Phicol, the commander of his army, Isaac said to them, Why have you come to me, seeing that you hate me and have sent me away from you? They said, we see plainly that the Lord has been with you, so that we said, Let there be sworn pact between us, between you and us, and let us make a covenant with you. They made the same covenant with Isaac. And what did they say? Isaac was like surprised them coming to him and said, why do you come to me? That you hate me so much. Why are you coming to me? And they said, I saw that God is with you. So don't harm us. Let's make a covenant with us. Did Isaac brag about that God is with him? No. The way he's living, same thing with Abraham. They saw how he lives, how he behaves. They were able to tell they're different than any other people they have met. I mean, we have met so many different people, but you know what? I see you're different. I don't know what it is, but I see that God is with you. And every time I read this, and I actually kind of like reflect myself, does other people see me that I'm a believer of God? Do they see me that God is with me? How about you guys? Does people around you claim that God is with you? The pagans saw that God is with us without me saying to them. What is God telling us? Be different. Be separated from this world. Don't be like anyone else. Don't blend to this world. So then, let's think about it for a second. Okay, I get that. All right, so we have to be different. We have to be separated. I get that. Now, what does that have to do with this food? What does it have to do with this clean and unclean animal? What God is saying, I am giving you a law that you are different from anyone else. Anyone else could eat anything they want. But for you, because you're my chosen people, I don't want you to eat unclean food, unclean animals that I tell you not to eat. So you have to eat certain food. Okay? I get it now. All right. You're telling us that we have to eat certain food to be different from other pagans, not like others. I don't know if you have some friends or there's some, co-workers, who are Jewish. The Jewish people eat kosher food. They don't eat any food. They have to go to a place or store or restaurant that only serve kosher food. You probably have seen some of the Muslim people only eat halal food. Did you see that? Yeah, the Muslim people only eat halal. They have to have like halal sign, and it has to have a certification that they're only serving the halal. They don't eat other food. They eat chicken, but they don't eat chicken that are not halal. Or for Jewish people, unless chicken is kosher, they don't eat. We may think, wait a second, chicken is chicken. What's the difference? No, they're very different. They will never touch those food that are not halal or kosher. Does Christian care? Kosher, halal, whatever. Do we care? No, we don't care. We could eat kosher. We could eat halal. We could eat anything. Who cares? Are we different? Are we separated from this world? Or are we the same as the rest of the world? God said, "Be holy, for I am holy." He said, "Be different, because I'm different. Be separated, because I'm separated." But how about Christians? Even Muslim or Jewish people, they try to be different than the rest of the world. The Christians, we're not. Why is that? Now, let's go a little further. Okay. Why the clean animals have to chew the cud? Why clean animals must have a split hoof? What does it have to do with it? God told us that is a clean food, and that is a clean animal. Okay, I get it. I see that's a clean, because you told us it's a clean, but what does that mean it's actually clean? Let's just start with split hoof. Let's jump. Chapter 11, verse 20 on. All winged insects that go on all the fours are detestable to you. Yet among the winged insects that go on all fours, you may eat those that have joint legs above their feet, with which to hop on the ground. Of them you may eat the locust of any kind, the bold locust of any kind, the cricket of any kind, and the grasshopper of any kind. But all their winged insects that have 4 feet are detestable to you. And by these you shall become unclean. Whoever touches their carcass shall be unclean until the evening, and whoever carries any part of their carcass shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the evening. What does this mean? Now we're talking about insects. The God is talking about certain insects you can eat, certain insects you can't. So what types of insects can you eat? Right. Correct. So, verse 22 says, "Of them you may eat the locust of any kind, and a bold locust of any kind, and the cricket of any kind, and the grasshopper of any kind. But all other winged insects that have 4 feet are detestable to you." Why is that? Verse 27, take a look at this. "And all that walk on their paws among the animal that go on all fours are unclean to you. Whoever touches their carcass shall be unclean until the evening." What kind of things are unclean? Right. Why is that? That's the question. So let's think about the insects, the insects that Israelite could eat. Grasshopper, right? And then crickets, locust. What's the common things between all those insects that we just mentioned? They're hopping. They hop, right? And has a wing that it hops, right? So it's different from the rest of the insects. The rest of the insects are like, they crawl, right? They crawl. They walk on the ground. Not like cricket, not like, grasshoppers. It doesn't jump. It doesn't hop. So, I need you to be able to link this into something. Something that I already explained to you in the past. Separation from the ground. That's correct. Absolutely correct. Why is the question. Okay. You're right. Right. You're very close. You're very, very close. So let's turn to Genesis chapter 3. Genesis chapter 3. Today we're going back to the Genesis many times, right? Because you need to be able to link this together. We're going to read from Genesis chapter 3, verse 11 and on. He said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree of which I commanded you not to eat?" The man said, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me fruit of the tree, and I ate." Then the Lord God said to the woman, "What is this that you have done?" The woman said, "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." The Lord God said to the serpent, "Because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and above all beasts of the field. On your belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat, and all the days of your life. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. You shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel." To the woman he said, "I will surely multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be contrary to your husband, but you shall rule over you." And to Adam he said, "Because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and you have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground because of you. In pain you shall eat of it all the days of your life." All right. Two things we learned from here. What did you learn from this? The ground is accursed. Ground is cursed. What about a serpent? What did God say to serpent? Verse 14, Verse 14 said, "The Lord God said to the serpent, because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and above all the beasts of the field. On your belly you shall go." So what is it now? The serpent is now what? Crawling on the ground. You see? The serpent is now on the belly to go wherever he needs to go. Right? So we learn two things. Number one, because of what Adam had done, the ground was cursed. I explained this when we were covering Genesis before, but it's been a while that you probably don't even remember all the explanation that I gave you guys. But why is the ground was cursed? What did ground do? We know Adam had done wrong. We know the woman had done wrong. What did ground do? Why does ground have to be cursed? Because that's where Adam came from. The ground is where the Adam came from. This is why God commanded Adam to do what? Verse 19. By the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you are taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Where did Adam came from? From the dust. Where did the dust come from? From the ground. So where it was originated from? The ground. Adam, right, means ground. So, because of their sins, the foundation of a human, which is the dust and the ground, was accursed, because that's where we came from. So this is why, when we look at Exodus, now this time we turn to Exodus. Chapter 3. Exodus chapter 3. We're going to read from verse 1. Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of Midian, and he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God, and the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame out of the midst of the bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. Moses said, I will turn aside to see this great sight. Why the bush is not burned? When the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Do not come near. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, and he was afraid to look at God. I explained this again. When Moses went up to the mount of Horeb, and the angel of the Lord said, Take off your sandal, because where you're standing is holy. Remember we had this conversation a long time ago? Maybe not. This is why we should go as fast as possible, because we all forget about what we learned. At the time, we all understood. At the time, we got it. Time goes on, we forgot everything what we learned. So, before Moses got to this place, this mountain of Horeb, was this land or the ground where he stood, was it a holy ground? It wasn't. So how did it become holy then? Because the presence of God. Because God was standing there, that ground became holy. Not because the ground was holy, because God was there at that moment. It made it holy. Is that correct? What if after God left that place, is the ground still holy? No, no longer is it holy. It's cursed ground. I mentioned this to you when I was talking about the Garden of Eden. Is the Garden of Eden was especially different from any other places God created around the earth? Why is this place called the Garden of Eden was so special? Because that's where God was there. After God left, this place is no different than any other places. That's why I told you that you will never going to find the Garden of Eden anymore. Because it's not a special place. What makes difference is whether God is there or not. That's the difference. So what it means is, going back to Leviticus chapter 11, the insects are hopping, okay, and has wing. What does that tell you? It is separated from the ground. Right? It is just separate from the ground. It does not stay on the ground all the time. It's trying to be separated from the ground because it's hopping, because it has wings. The rest of the animals, rest of the insects, they crawl on the ground. It is unclean because it's stuck to this unclean and cursed ground. But this insects, they just keep trying to be separated from the ground, trying to be hopping away from the ground. It is clean. Going back to the animals, clean animal, unclean animal. What is a hoof? When you think of it, hoof is it's like shoes. Right? It's like we're wearing shoes. That the paw does not touch the ground because of the hoof. It does not touch the cursed ground. So, God said, it must have a hoof. But the question is, all right, wait a second. All right, there's a hoof. There's a lot of animal that has a hoof, but not every animal that has a hoof is clean. Example was camel or horse. Horse has a hoof too, right? So, we understand not every animal that has a hoof is clean. Not only you have to have a hoof, but also have to have a split hoof. So what is that split hoof? Now I want you to continue to link with everything what we have learned in the past. I mentioned many, many times about this. All right. Let's go back to Genesis again. We're going back to Genesis many times. Genesis chapter 15. We're going to read from verse 8 and on. But he said, O Lord God, how am I to know that I shall possess it? He said to him, Bring me a heifer 3 years old, a female goat 3 years old, a ram 3 years old, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he brought him all these, cut them in half, and laid each half of her against the other. But he did not cut the birds in half. And when birds of a prey came down on the carcass, Abraham drove them away. As the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell on Abraham. Behold, dreadful and great darkness fell upon him. Then the Lord said to Abraham, Know for certain that your offspring will be sojourn in the land that is not dear, and will be servant there, and they will be afflicted for 400 years. But I will bring judgment on the nation that they served, and afterward they shall come out with great possessions. As for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried in a good old age, and they shall come back here in the fourth generation, for the iniquity of Amorites is not yet complete. When the sun had gone down and it was dark, behold, a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch passed between these pieces. On that day the Lord made covenant with Abram, saying, To your offspring I give this land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates, and land of Kenite, and Kenitzite, and Cadmonite, and Hittites, the Perizzites, and Rephaim, and Amorites, the Canaanite, and Girgashite, and Jebusites. God told Abram to bring the sacrifice animal. And what did Abram do with that animal? They cut in half. Why does he have to cut in half? When Jesus Christ died on the cross, and when he died, what happened? The veil torn apart from the top to bottom. And then veil was what? Veil represent what? The body of a Christ. The body of Christ is split in half. Right? Now, once again, split hoof. What does it tell you? Hoof, which is a separating from this cursed ground, but at the same time, the hoof has to be split in half. Everything, what we have learned so far, shows split it when they gave the animal. When they're in the desert, The rock split it. When Jesus gave the bread, he always broke it and gave it to them. This shows what? The body of Christ will have to be split, torn apart. Does that make sense? This is why only animals that has hoof but has to be split. What about chewing the cud? Why does it have to chew the cud? Leviticus chapter 11. We're going to read from verse 3. Whatever part the hoof and is cloven-footed and chew the cud among the animals you may eat. You see it? It means when the animal eats, they eat and then bring it up again, they chew it again, and then eat and chew and bring it up and chew it again and eat. Have you seen like the horse or the it's like lamb? Yeah, when they eat and then bring it up, it's like they throw up almost and bring it all up and then eat again and eat again and then bring it up. They just repeat that several times. Maybe when you go to a zoo next time, maybe you should just kind of like watch how they eat. But you get the idea? Yeah. So why does this animal have to do that? When you look at this, chew the cud, in Hebrew, they use the word ma'alat gerah. Ma'alat gerah is like literally word chew the cud. So, ma'alat gerah is like eat and chew it and eat, and then you throw up again, and then you chew it again, and then you eat again, and you throw up again, and you chew, and then take it in again. So, God is actually telling something that you have to eat, and then bring it up, eat, bring it up, and repeat several times. Remember, it's coming up. Keep coming up. All right? What's coming up? When we learn about offering, what was the first offering we learned? What was the first offering we learned? Burnt offering. Burnt offering was the first offering we learned as we enter into the Leviticus. When I talked about burnt offering, I actually used a Hebrew word. What was that word that I used? I said it's a Korean word and a Hebrew word exactly the same. Olah. What does that olah mean? Going up. It's raising up. Going up. Ma'alat gerah, coming up. You eat, coming up. You chew, eat, coming up, chew, eat, coming up. What is that happening? It's like, bring it up. Bring it up. Bring it up what? Gera means bring it up. Raise it up. When animal is brought up to the burnt offering as a sacrifice animal, as a clean animal to be sacrificed, it has to be ola. It has to be raised and accepted to the Lord. Animals has to be accepted to the Lord. The clean animals not only have to have the split hoof, but have to chew the cud. Keep repeating, bring it up, bring it up, bring it up. That's what he was referencing. It has to be raised up that are cleaned. That does not touch the ground. The paw does not touch the ground. It cannot touch the ground. It has to be separate from the ground, but have to be splitted. When it's splitted, it's like when animals split it, what happened? You're dead. Right? Have you ever seen any offerings that, offer the live animal burn? No. You have to kill the animal first. Why do we have to kill the animal first? God only accepts what is dead. God will never accept anything alive. We have to die first in order for us to live. Right? God only accepts what's dead. God will never accept what is alive. We have to die first in order for us to live. This is why clean animal, unclean animal. Unclean animal does not chew the cud, or the paw touches the ground, or even if it has a hoof, it is not splitted. All unclean. Only split hoof and chew the cud is the only thing that are accepted to God, and is clean animal that we are allowed to eat. You get that? Well, I spent too much time explaining about just unclean animal and clean animal. Well, let's just cover up to this portions today, and then we cover the fishes and the birds and the rest of the stuff next week. Any questions up to this point? Puzzle. It is a showing because most of the animal, including us, when we eat, it never come up. All the animals, they don't really bring it up. Most of the animal, they eat done. Think about the wild animals. Have you seen any animals that actually throw up and then eat again? You will never see any wild animals does that. It's not about chewing and bring it up. It's about the way things are coming up. It's not about the food itself they're eating. It's not about the disgusting things that keep coming up. What God is saying is just showing the biological point of view that these animals always bring up the food. The food always go down. Nothing comes up. Right? They have to draw the food up multiple times. Their only specific animal does that. Like I said, none of the animals that are eating meat does this. Only animals that are eating the vegetable does this, by the way. And there's only few animals that does like this. It's a showing that these animals draw up. It's like there's something is powerfully bringing it up. That means gerah. Garat means, let me actually show you let's see if I can find the, hang on one second. Bear with me for a second. Okay. I don't know if you can see in a chat box that I sent. Do you see? You see? Yeah, that's the lexicon of a gerah. So the gerah is like something is pulling up. Forcefully something is like bringing it up. Dragging up. So only animals that are actually bringing up. Just like Ola. All the offering has to be go up. And those are the only animals that are clean. I'm sorry? Was that the ones who were asking, or somebody else was talking? Oh. Enzo, do you see? Does that kind of explain, or it's still unclear? Yeah, it's not about food that God is referencing. It's about the motions of bringing things up. Well, I guess you never paid attention to those animals that are how they're eating, it seems. The horse does that too. Okay. Any other questions? So this is some things that you will not easy to catch with why God is distinguishing this clean animal versus unclean animal. And what does it really mean by having the split hoof? Why the chewing the cud is the clean animal versus the rest of them are not clean. So you get some portions of it now. I also explain about the insects, why those insects, their specific insects, are clean and all their insects are not. Right? Now you get some idea now, right? Okay. So the bottom line is we have to be different. We have to be separate from this world. We can't be like this world. If no one can distinguish from this world, then something wrong with me. Any question? No question.